Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. We are about to start part 4 out of 4 of our Sacred Masculinity IG Live series with Brandon on. We're doing a Q&A today, taking your guys' questions for the full hour. So we got about 10 questions lined up.
Part 4.
Good afternoon, my friend.
Good afternoon. This is the last in the series. It's bittersweet.
It is, man. I have a feeling though this won't be the last collab on this topic.
Yeah. Or just collab in general. I love everything you're doing.
Likewise, my friend. And man, I don't know about you, but I've been really blown away the way people have responded to this topic we've been covering. I knew it was going to be an exciting topic. It's a topic I get a lot of questions on.
Yeah.
But man, I was not exactly ready for just how much people have been resonating with this. So it's been a lot of fun, and I'm excited to wrap things up today with you.
Yeah, it's such a microcosm of what's going on in the macrocosm archetypally. And it's like, if I can solve it within myself and a relationship, any relationship, it can all solve itself out there. So I think it's so important.
Yeah. These two energies we're covering just absolutely filter into every aspect of spirituality, physicality. It's the whole universe is the interplay of two oppositely polarized energies. So we talk about that here as the masculine and feminine in spirituality, in law of one, positive, negative. But yeah, this is the world of duality. This is the game we're playing. And so understanding polarity very deeply, I've found, has been such a huge catalyst to understanding so many other aspects of spirituality and self-development and really just self-knowledge in general.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So as I said, we got about 10 questions we picked out from the ones you guys submitted, and we will be paying attention to the chat. So we like this to be a co-creation, a conversation. So we'll be taking some questions through the chat, I'm sure, as well. But let's go ahead and dive into it. I'll start off with some of the questions I have. Actually, let's do this. We'll go back and forth between you and I's different questions.
Perfect.
I'll start with this one from at Make Your Soul Happy. Asks, how do you define true power, true masculine power and true feminine power? So really great question, really relevant to this topic. I'd like to filter this conversation down from the relationships and sexuality and just filter down to the basic essence of these two energies. We've talked about the feminine is the principle of passion, creativity, inspiration, intuition, and of course love, compassion. When you're in any of those things, you're in your feminine, right? So we can see how important those energies are for so many aspects of just ordinary life and true self-empowerment, whether it's in your career, in your relationships, in your spiritual growth, anything you're striving for in life, you need that feminine energy to be the driving force, the power behind it. And then masculine would be order, stability, structure, support, strategizing, reasoning, the ability to persevere, have responsibility, commitment, being authentic, having strength of character, and of course wisdom. These are all masculine energy powers. And so that's the essence of true feminine and masculine power. And of course that shows up in relationships, but it shows up in, singleness and ordinary life and in your career and all the things we've mentioned. So yeah, super important to have both.
Yeah. One thing that comes to mind for me, it's like through my own realizations of these archetypes within myself, that one of the most powerful things that the feminine can do, whether this is within a woman or a man, is surrender. And I go, man, what does it actually look like to be powerfully expressing the feminine? And it's a paradox. It's to actually surrender, to let go. And in a man, that can look like being vulnerable, but it can also look like not wanting to be right, ending the need to fix, ending the need to control. All of these different expressions of the powerlessness can be transcended by just the one major feminine principle of surrender to the fear, surrender to what you think you need to feel at
Yeah.
peace, and it's just boom. So I see that being a really powerful feminine trait.
Yeah. 100%. It's kind of like the feminine wants to feel life. It wants to enjoy, experience, taste, right? Those like feminine,
Mm-hmm.
open heart, surrender to the present moment. And so if we look at, again, just taking the traditional heterosexual relationship as an easy example,
Mm-hmm.
the woman wants to have experiences, right? Like, take me
Mm-hmm.
out, like, let's enjoy, let's have fun. And the masculine or the man tends to want to work, right? He's a
Mm-hmm.
workaholic. And so when that's out of balance, when he doesn't have enough feminine, he'll work too much, never be home with the family and the kids. And the wife will say, why are you never home? You're always working. Like, spend some time with your family, live life, experience life with us. And then vice versa, if the feminine isn't balanced in her masculine, then she might not have a drive to work, not have a drive to contribute and support the family. And that can cause the man to have issues towards
Mm-hmm.
her and resentments towards her. So, yeah, we got to have a balance between work and play in that sense. And the work is the masculine, the play is the feminine.
Yeah. And I see the masculine, when that is integrated, is it truly lives in service of the feminine,
Yeah.
in another person or within itself, but it recognizes that that's its value. So its entire life is oriented. If we say surrender, that's really synonymous with love. Then you're going, everything that I do, everything that I'm building, my intention behind the business, all of this action is so that state of being can be realized and can be
Yeah.
taught through my action. So it's almost like, to look for a man to have this balanced relationship, I might look like I'm doing the same thing as a man that has an imbalanced relationship, going to work or doing something physical. But the reason I'm doing it and where it's coming from is what makes me powerful. Because
Yeah.
all of a sudden, I'm not trying to get, I'm not trying to control, I'm not going, I need to achieve in order to get love. I've already surrendered to the love. So now I'm boundless in what I can do because I have no destination. I am that destination. I'm living from it. So that's what
Yeah.
I see for the man who's a little more masculine oriented. It still might look like a really strong pull to outward expression and service and creation and whatnot, but it's from a feminine place.
Yeah. So good, man. The feminine is that which, as you said, allows us to surrender to life and to experience life, to let
Mm-hmm.
life move through us. But then the masculine is the principle that integrates experience into
Mm-hmm.
truth and into wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the real powers of the feminine and masculine. And yeah, man, so important to have an equal balance of those.
Yeah, really, really good. Shall we do question two?
Let's go for it.
Epic. Debunking. Now, I didn't write the names of these individuals. I forgot that. So you know who you are.
Shame.
Yeah. Debunking twin flame and soulmate kind of belief systems that could do a relationship more harm than good.
Yeah.
So first thing I would like to say about this is that any sort of way that you want to define your partner is fine if it doesn't create expectation or a fundamental, I need this from you in order to validate me or to validate this definition. You're not being a soulmate because you're not doing soulmate things. You're not, doing saying twin flame things. So it could, for the most part, and here's the paradox, if I'm wanting to define it in any way, and I start to realize my old definitions of what is a twin flame, what does a soulmate need to look like? Does that somehow control how I experience my relationship? I think sometimes we go, well, it's a twin flame, so it is going to be hard. We have a bunch of karma to burn.
Yeah.
And it's like, is it true? Like, that's just a future you just crystallized right in that moment. And
Yeah.
that could be for so many other reasons. Well, I just want to feel better about where I'm not looking at my stuff. So I'm just going to say, it's just a soulmate thing. I just have
Right.
to go through it. I have to sacrifice it. It could be so many other reasons. But once we start to see, it's like, can I actually find, once I've integrated a lot of these lessons, can I find a reason to put a definition or a label on it even at all? Like, I think at some point we start to go, it just is what it is. And I actually don't need to know if it's a soulmate. I don't need to know if it's a twin flame.
Bingo.
Because I'm just trying to create certainty about a future anyway. And that's actually what's making me feel uncertain and insecure.
Yeah. Well said. I totally echo your sentiments on that. If anyone listening follows my content, they'll know I'm very firm about labels. I'm not a fan of labeling anything for the reason that a label's just a limitation. It's a restriction on reality, and all labels are from ego. So I've seen this happen with the twin flame thing over and over again. People are so quick to want to label soulmate or twin flame on their first romantic relationship. Oh, it's my twin flame. Like, well, you don't know that though. You can't possibly know that. You might meet someone 5 years from now who's a way more deep, intense, intimate relationship than that. And so the moment you put a label on something, you only refer to the label and you don't let reality tell you what it is anymore. So it's like, if it is a twin flame or not, it already is without your label or with your label.
Yeah.
So it's like, I always think about with labels, the Diamond Sutra. I don't know if you've read the Diamond Sutra or not, Brandon.
No, I haven't.
It's a Buddhist text where one of Buddha's disciples, Subhuti, and him are having this like kind of jam session with each other. Mm-hmm. And Buddha's asking him questions. And it's like kind of the same thing repeated again and again, but he'll say things like, Subhuti, tell me, if 1,000 bodhisattvas spend all their incarnations coming back to earth to teach others the message of enlightenment, would they be true bodhisattvas? And Subhuti replies, no, Lord Buddha, they would not be bodhisattvas. They would only be called bodhisattvas. Mm. And then they go to the next concept and they just keep doing it. And when you read it, you start to get a feel for what this text is pointing to, which is that the label is never the reality. It's like Buddha will lay it out like, even if they do all these great virtuous things, are they this label? It's like, nope, that's just a name, right? Yeah. What they are is beyond naming. So it's like with a relationship, something as organic and dynamic and evolving and flowing as a relationship, why would you ever want to label that? It's just going to put you in a corner where you're going to be stuck referencing this one idea that might not even be true, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, it's just, there's never a point to using those labels.
Yeah. And I feel like we could just call it like label consciousness. So we've all been in that label consciousness. It's like, I'm just putting labels on all things. And I think
specialness, right?
And it's specialness. And it's like the moment that I create the label, I'm going to feel separate from that thing. If I'm attaching to the label. And I'm actually feeling upset, not at what the label's doing, but at the fact that I'm labeling it and that I'm feeling separation. And because I'm not equipped to go, man, how can I get to the root of this separation? I think that I just need to feel more special. It's like I just seek the pleasure. I seek feeling good, and seeking feeling good ends up proving to you that you can never find feeling good somewhere. You just end up feeling more lost, and that looks like continuous patterns and no integration. So I see that being very common, heavy in labels, heavy in needing to figure out what this is and all of that. I'm looking for something to hold on to make me feel better about what I'm feeling. I'm feeling separate from myself.
Yeah. It's like a way the ego is trying to find purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like another one's the starseed one. Like everybody wants to claim, I'm a starseed, I'm a starseed, I'm a starseed. It's like, one, you can't possibly know that. Two, if you are, who ultimately cares? It doesn't make a difference. Mm-hmm. It's not like it's wrong to use these terms or talk about them, but when it becomes an identity thing, you've now limited yourself, and now you're going to have to dig yourself out of that hole. So better not to dig the hole in the first place, right?
If you reminded me, because I watched your video where you were like, I'm Rainbow Salamander Boy, or whatever.
Starseed Indigo Ray, child of the Pleiades. Yeah.
That cracked me up.
That's good stuff. Next question I have comes from @Lenka Penka 639, who asks, how can I differentiate between true masculinity and narcissistic alpha male facade? So how do we tell the difference between an empowered masculine or a wounded masculine, essentially? We know the wounded masculine will become the abuser, the narcissist, the liar, the manipulator, the gaslighter, and all that. Before pitching it to you, I would just say it's sort of like asking, how do I tell the difference between a burglar and a saint or something? Like there will be no mistaking it. Now, a lot of people haven't truly experienced a really divine or sacred masculine type of man. A lot of women have it rather. So it may be hard to know what that would look like, but trust me, when you see it, you will know the difference. Energy speaks louder than anything else. But a simple way we could classify it might be the power over or power for. A truly sacred masculine empowered man will never lie to you. He'll never put you in a box, restrictions, control, tell you what to do or what not to do. He won't pry into your past. He won't put limitations and boundaries on your relationship. He'll show up as he is and accept you as you are. And if it's not a match, he will lovingly and kindly, let you know that it's not a match for him and leave the relationship. He will not abandon. He will not abuse. He will not gaslight. I mean, these are obvious things, but truthfully, once you've experienced a sacred masculine energy in your life, whether it's a father figure or a partner or brother or somebody, it's impossible to ever mistake it again, just as much as it's impossible to mistake light for darkness, right?
Yeah. So I love this principle that Bashar talks about. He says, you can only experience what you are the vibration of. And so it's like, if I'm of the vibration of confusion and maybe causing a lot of suffering in my mind, I'm going to get and be of the vibration of a confused individual. And that's all really, like when the divine masculine expresses the woundedness, it's because there's an unquestioned, unintegrated confusion, something that has happened, some story that he's not willing to look at or integrate or question. So if I have a hard time looking at it and I go, it looks like there's something here I'm kind of confused about, and I don't think they're totally being honest about things, I would just turn that around and going, I'm a little confused about who and what I am. And maybe, this is, I'm looking at myself here. So that's just how I see it. It's simple. I will know when if the masculine is not willing to be honest, I'm probably not totally willing to be honest with me if I find myself in the relationship. Not always, but if that is a source of pain, a source of suffering, man, this person is close, I want them to be more honest. Every situation becomes transparent when you become transparent to yourself, because the situation is an extension of you. So if your goal is transparency with yourself, you will have perfect discernment. But trying to focus on the other and go, let me find where this person is in their divine masculine or wounded, can be tricky if you're confused, because you can justify and rationalize behavior all day. Oh no, he had to yell at me, I was out of line. That kind of stuff. Yes. So you can only find that answer for yourself within yourself through the self-honesty. And then what is not of that will just become very obvious, and you won't feel a gravity to it, because that was the lesson that life was bringing to you. It was like, oh, go in, be honest, heal yourself. That's why I'm here. You take the lesson and you might not need the teacher, or you will just become very aware that it is a teacher.
Right. The guru is in you. So it's about mastering those energies in yourself first, and then you become a mismatch to them once you've healed them, as you just pointed out. So asking yourself the question, if you're looking to attract a divine masculine man, then ask yourself the questions of where am I still a match to the wounded masculine, which would really be, where do I have still a desire or a need to control others or to punish others? Those are the two big things that the wounded masculine will do. It will control the feminine and punish the feminine. As you just also touched on, like when the wounded masculine, the narcissist, is abusing the feminine, it always makes its abuse her fault, right? You deserve this. You've earned this because of your misbehavior and your mistreatment. You don't love me enough. You don't whatever enough. So this is, I'm giving you the justice that you deserve. So it's like, where am I doing that in my life? Whether it's with friends, parents, whoever, right? Any need in me to get vengeance against someone for the hurts they've caused me is wounded masculine. And any need to control or change people to fit my mold for them is also wounded masculine. So once you've transcended those energies in yourself, and you can accept others how they are, and you can forgive others for what they've done, then you will never be a match to a man who's doing that to you. It's just impossible.
Yeah, exactly. And one other marker I'll just mention is you'll know you're in that place. And this isn't like a prerequisite for relationships. Like if you want to be in a relationship, go for it. Because again, you can learn all this within a relationship. It's not like you
Yeah.
need to go to the temple and be like, okay, let me be fully healed before I get in a relationship. Like
Right.
that in of itself is a negative act.
Hmm.
So it's like the moment I will realize within myself that I'm coming to balance, what I want from and in a relationship will change.
Yeah.
Before, it might be, I just want to feel really good. I want to be worshiped. I want to be loved. I just want that one person that's just going to be there for me. And none of this is wrong or bad. These are really innocent desires. But if you keep going deeper and go, is that what I really want? What will that give me if I did get all that? And then what would that give me? What would that? You end up arriving at love. I want to feel at one. I want to feel peace. I want to love what is without zero need to try to control or change it in order for me to be happy. It's like the emptying, right? So what that looks like in relationship is if I start a relationship with someone, we come into like a container, and I'm not willing that for tomorrow for the container to end or change and become something else, if I'm not as open to that as I am about starting it, then there's something that's out of balance. There's something that says
That's good.
it needs to go a certain way in order for it to be good. And I'm still outsourcing, I'm outsourcing, and I'm outsourcing. So that's the paradox. It's like, actually, you can't commit to a relationship until you're perfectly okay with the relationship ending, because then
Yeah.
you're not in fear and attachment, and that's what destroys commitment. That's what creates the sabotage. That's what convinces you not to commit, this fearful future that I want to avoid.
Yeah. That's another huge point, man. You just touched on with the feminine powers, the power of flow. Flow is an aspect of surrender. The feminine is able to flow with change, flow with life, accept life, surrender to life's changes. And the wounded masculine needs to control, needs to be a certain way, resists change. So yeah, there's another way you can look at those, if those energies are balanced in you, is how able am I to flow with life? If I have a problem with life, the flow of life, I have some imbalance in my feminine energy there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Huge.
Really good. All right, let's do the next one. How to heal from abandonment from a wounded masculine. So
good one.
So yeah, this is really good. And I think, did I do the last question or did you?
I did.
Okay. So often the answer is in the question in some way, right? So to me, I look at the question and I go, okay, to heal from being abandoned from a masculine out there, I have to realize that that didn't happen. And I'm not saying I didn't experience it. Right. I experienced it, but I'm actually now finding that that wasn't the source of my pain. So if I find that this person leaving me was not the source of my pain, why the heck would I try to avoid it again? It wasn't the source of my pain in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's not about this arduous journey of let me rebuild trust. Let me just put my toes out there and make sure I do this in a really safe and secure way. That's a guaranteed way to attract more pain, right? Because what happens when you do anything with hesitation? You hurt yourself. It's like Byron Katie's quote. She's like, oh, don't try to be careful. You might hurt yourself. So it's like, was it the person leaving that hurt? Or was it the story that says, now that you are gone, I'm less off. I'm less loved. There's something wrong with me. So it's about finding what that story is for you. And when it comes full circle and you go, holy crap, you're telling me the point of that relationship was for me to free myself from that belief and therefore receive all of the love I thought I was getting from. Then you realize that that person leaving was actually the most loving thing that could have happened to you. Yeah. Because when you really start soul searching, you go, what do I really want? Full radical self-love and liberation, or this person in my life? this person to come back to me or whatever it might be. And you realize again that you didn't actually want them to stay. You wanted the liberation, the self-love, the freedom that you could say the forgiveness can give you.
Yeah. I love that you made that distinction between what happened and what you experienced, because that's where healing is. That's where forgiveness is.
Yeah.
You have a story, but the story is not reality. Now, to tell someone, like, especially in teaching like A Course in Miracles, we say, you cannot be abused. You cannot be harmed. You cannot be abandoned. And then someone says, "But how dare you say that to me? I was beaten physically for 15 years. How can you tell me I was never abused?" And so here's where the experience and the reality need to be understood. We're not saying you didn't experience abuse, you didn't experience physical pain and fear and all of that, but the reality of who you are needs to be understood. You're not the body. You're not the person that gets abused. You're the consciousness, the light within the body, and that cannot be touched or abused, and that's where healing is. So here's where masculine and feminine balance is important again, that the nature of the feminine, as we've said, is to want to feel and experience. That's feminine. The nature of the masculine is to want to know and understand. So when the feminine's out of balance, the feminine gets identified with its experiences. When the masculine's out of balance, it gets identified with its knowledge. So the masculine, getting identified with concepts and knowledge and understanding, is left feeling empty and hollow and dry inside because it doesn't have the essence of reality. It doesn't have the experience of reality because it's stuck in the labels, right? It's stuck in the concepts, which are hollow and empty. A concept is just a placeholder for reality. Sorry, I got a call. A concept is a placeholder for reality. The feminine, though, when it gets identified with experience, it makes stories out of its experiences. I was abandoned, I was abused, and so forth, as you were touching on. And so that's where it needs the masculine wisdom to find its way out of the story again. So yes, if left alone, both polarities will get lost and way out of balance. Coming together, they empower one another and they heal one another. So the abandonment thing is exactly what you were saying. It's realized that's a story, that I experienced that story, but that's not the reality of what happened. I have to know I am always free. I am always eternal and infinite and cannot be harmed. That's the masculine wisdom balanced with the experience. Now we can hold both. We don't have to deny what happened. We don't have to deny experience. So, no, I wasn't abused. It never happened. That can also be bypassing, right? You can say, no, the body experienced many years of abuse or abandonment or whatever. That experience happened to the body, but it was only to teach me that I'm not the body, as you said. It was only to empower me to self-realization. All experiences lead you towards self-realization if there's the wisdom to combine with the experience.
Yeah. Dude, this is such a valuable distinction. I'm so glad that you made that. What I'm hearing is the feminine principle can become a victim to experience and really the emotion of the experience.
Yes.
And the man can become a victim to the concept of the experience, the thoughts about the experience. And so by the man becoming a victim to it, all that means is I don't have a choice to feel it. That's too scary. So I have to conceptualize. And the feminine principle goes, I don't have a choice to really see this in any other way. Yeah. I don't feel like I have a choice because maybe that's scary. Maybe it'll happen again. And, maybe I'll get re-traumatized. So I'm not even going to look there, and I'm just going to hold on to the emotion because at least I'm getting something from it. At least I'm getting support or help. And the man, at least I'm getting, around other people that don't want to feel their emotions, and they're not going to bring that up within me. So I'll go to that polarity. We'll go to that polarity. If it's the man that we're talking about in the masculine essence, it's like, oh, too much emotion, red flag, they run. And then the woman is like, oh man, too much logic. Oh, I'll run from that. And actually those two are going to keep attracting each other to give each other the medicine that they really both need.
Yes. Yeah. The feminine can get really lost in its emotional responses to its experiences, the traumas, you know, the feminine represents the subconscious mind, that which is away from our conscious understanding. So it's hard for the wounded feminine to question its stories, because there's a huge amount of identity behind it.
Yeah.
And I teach this on in my content, but ego is simply that mental activity of identifying, whether you're identifying with an experience that happened or with a concept you've learned. Both will lead to problems when you identify. So as you were touching on in the beginning of this question, if the feminine can integrate some of the masculine wisdom to balance it with, it can start questioning the story. As Byron Katie would say, is it true? And was I really abandoned? Well, which I are we referring to? I, the body? Well, the body will always have that story. The body believes it was abandoned, but I, pure consciousness, I, the spirit, the light, can't be abandoned. So what actually may have happened? Well, somebody who's going to truly abandon someone is obviously not a very healed person. So maybe what actually happened in reality was that reality saved you from potential abuse that would have happened if they hadn't left, or all kinds of other horrible stuff. So you see, oh, actually what used to be abandonment from the ego's disempowered view becomes being saved by reality from further torment in an empowered point of view. So yeah, it's like you've got to be willing to question your stories, and that's where the masculine and feminine really meet.
Yes, this is so good. And for the man, just something practical, or the masculine, caught up in the mind and in the stories, I found personally that just sitting and going within to feeling, to sensation, is such a powerful gateway. Sometimes even, you know, these are all permission slips. Things like music, things like having other people that are more emotionally connected, and it's like a very safe space. I find a lot of times if a man is, or the masculine is afraid, it's so caught up in the concepts, but they're just holding emotion that they haven't said, well, that's okay to be here. As the moment they see someone else that sees it as okay, they just give themselves permission to go, oh, it's okay, boom. But you can realize that it wasn't them that made it okay for you. It was you saying, I'm going to decide this is okay for me to feel this now. And I think sometimes it's so simple that to the conceptual mind, it's like, well, how can that transform anything? How could that lead to any sort of realization? Just feeling sad, you know? Yeah. And especially if there's judgment around that. And it's like, the moment you feel anything that you were opposed to or that you were judging, you unify with it. And that unification is what we call love. And that love transforms everything.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's the feminine way. So I actually experienced that a couple of days ago of like, just having everything made sense in my mind. Yeah, this makes sense. This is what happened. This is what's happening. And I know who I am. Okay. But there was this feeling, and I eventually just sat and felt, and then it was like, oh, now I actually know what I was thinking.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because it's always, reality is always your friend. It's always trying to help you. It's always trying to empower you and teach you. It's always good. And so when you're able to just feel something like sadness, what you're doing is joining yourself with reality. You're being friendly with reality, which means it will be friendly with you. When you push away feelings, you're making reality your enemy. So reality has no choice but to mirror that and become your enemy. So it's like, I need to be able to feel this sadness. Why? Because that's what's happening in reality, plain and simple. Sadness is arising. How do I know it's reality? Because I didn't choose it. I didn't make sadness happen. If I could choose it, I would just unchoose it. I would just push the sadness button and turn it off, right? We're not the chooser or the feeler of our feelings. They just happen. They just arise in response to stimulus. So to sit with the sadness and love it as being an equally valid teacher is to let sadness teach you something. It is trying to teach you something. So it's just like open your ears and feel and listen. And that's when inner guru, the masculine wisdom, begins to show you what the lesson is.
Yep. Love it. I think you got next question.
Next question.
Yeah.
This one, 3, is from @BlueBells, who asks, if your sacred feminine is wounded, will your sacred masculine also be wounded because of the imbalance? So what I would say before throwing it to you is, just because one polarity is wounded doesn't mean the other one's going to be wounded automatically. but it does mean there will be an imbalance of the polarities.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's like one thing, think about your body, one thing in balance in your body, like my liver a little clogged, everything else is going to have to compensate and make up for it and do things that aren't as natural as it would be doing if that blockage wasn't there.
Yeah.
So it's not going, man, now I'm just more wounded because this is wounded, so now I'm more wounded. It's, I have an opportunity to create balance, and it will balance. It knows how to balance.
Yeah. Because a lot of time not a lot of time really, this is what always happens when you're wounded in one aspect, you'll run to the other side and get way overbalanced on that side.
Yeah.
So easy example is like women who are wounded in a relationship, heterosexual relationship, they'll be really, really good if their feminine is wounded. They'll be really good at giving their partner love, but really bad at receiving the love because there's unworthiness there because their feminine is wounded. So they might be good at the masculine role if they're always doing things for their partner and whatnot, but then they can't receive the same love that they're giving. And so that would be the necessary healing aspect in that dynamic. So it could be either way.
Here's a really good archetype that I see a lot. I had such powerful experience of this when I was doing workshops in London. It was this woman who was really jacked and had like a suit on that was very masculine. And she comes over to me, she goes, so you're a life coach, huh? I was like, this is like in the very beginning, literally, I'm like being mentored. I'm like totally new to this whole thing. I didn't even know what coaching was. I just had some kind of awakening experiences, started sharing it and went, oh wait, I'm a coach? I don't know, that's a thing? Okay. So I started just using the word. And she's like, so you're a coach? What are you, 26? And you're a life coach? What can you teach me about life? And it was like, it was not called for. Like we were having like a party and we were like right by the Eye of London and it was a great time. And you could tell she was just looking for some conflict, you know? And my response was, yeah, you're right. I don't know much, you know? And to me, I'm like, thank God I don't know what all the things that I used to think I knew about life, you know, like, so I was like, yeah, you know, I don't know much about life, but from what's helped me, you know, some people find it helpful, some don't. And it's like, well, you know, I just don't think at your age you could really have to do that. And my mentor, who's like 6'6", and this, you know, just one of my best friends and mentors at the time, Javon, and he's super psychic, you know, and deep into the work. He's been like on many different countries and continents doing men's work. He just like sniffs it out, could like feel it, and just beelines over and just walks up to her and like just looks at her right in the eye, doesn't say anything, just pure presence. And he has this huge energy and there's so much compassion in him. Like his nature was feminine. Actually, initially, like that was his orientation from some trauma that went, okay, masculine men, they're all bad. I need to fit in with women. I need to be feminine to be safe. And then he integrated the masculine. I think you and I were the opposite. So I learned so much from him. And he goes, and he's just looking at her and she just goes, man, you know, your style, you have such an interesting style. What are you, gay? Like just a jab, you know, it's like, you know, who says that, you know?
Yeah.
And he just shakes his head and smiles. And he goes, who hurt you? He goes, what man hurt you?
What a gangster.
And she just starts crying and starts telling him everything. And here's the funny part about it. We were on a balcony and I'm like, there's like the opening, the door, and then there's like a leftover wall and the balcony. And I'm like right in that little leftover space and he's at the door and she's on the other side and I'm against the wall and I cannot move. I cannot leave the conversation. A head here and a head here. And I'm just going, watching this whole thing happen.
You have a 6'6" guy on this side and a super jacked woman on that side.
Yeah.
You're
and I'm
going
just
anywhere.
What's going on here? But the point of it was like, she started to like acknowledge in that moment, I was hurt by a man. And well, it was the story, right? Yeah, so now I try to hurt men, and actually by doing that, I subsequently become masculine. You know, what I think gives me value, since just trying to love and nurture and have this relationship, I was obliterated. I'm gonna go now achieve and conquer and do the things that men do because I think that's what power is. I think that that man
Yeah.
overpowered me, and they're more powerful than me. And so that was a perfect example of going way to the other end of the polarity,
Yeah.
which I think happens with so many of us. To them, like they always say, you know, we come back, was it Lao Tzu? It's like the middle way, the middle
Yeah.
path.
See, that's what we touched on in I think the second video. We were talking about how if the masculine gets wounded by the feminine, it will first see all feminine as weakness. So vulnerability, surrender, feeling, experiencing, that's all weakness. So we don't do those things anymore. We don't feel, we don't experience, we don't open up, we don't get vulnerable. And so, yeah, you can see how she became this embodiment of the very thing she hated, actually, which is what the wounded masculine does. So I love the way your mentor handled that by demonstrating truly empowered sacred masculinity, which is what? To hold space,
Yeah.
to have that groundedness, we talked about this in the second episode, to not be triggered or react to life, to have that, that Buddha Zen-like groundedness with reality. That's the ability to hold space. And then just to deliver the most one-pointed, sharp inquiry into someone's mind, to let them have that breakthrough. I mean, that's the power of the masculine. Someone asked about how do the powers show up? The masculine power is just a single phrase delivered with the accuracy of wisdom can be what disembowels that wounded feminine energy and allows it to be transmuted. So what an amazing story that really demonstrates how that looks in action.
Yeah, one of my friends, Sherveen, just did this in Whole Foods. A woman was just, you need to this young 17-year-old girl that wasn't wearing a mask, and she was wearing a mask. You need to wear a mask. And she's seething, and this little 17-year-old girl was just frozen in her tracks, like, I don't know what to do. And she's going off, and Sherveen hears it. And this is because I've had this experience too with like people wanting to fight and actually going in and being able to diffuse it. I'd say that is also a very powerful masculine, is to go in and realize that what it's about is not what it's about. Therefore, winning on this level doesn't create any winning. There's no such thing. So it was like Sherveen came over and looked at this woman and looked at the other one, looked at her and just went, what do you need right now? And she just went, I think I just am anxious. I just didn't have my Xanax today. I just need that to deal with my anxiety. And he goes, what if you actually just need to breathe? And do you want to breathe with me? And they just started breathing together. And it was like, he goes, maybe you just need to remember that you used to be that girl, that is a version of you. And, that it's all right. And it was like, she's crying, she's breathing, she's calm. That was it. That was the situation. It was over.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I'm going to fix you. It wasn't who's right and wrong. It was transcending the game that they were playing because he could see right through it.
Yeah. Wow. So powerful. So powerful. The wounded feminine becomes that ungrounded emotional volatility, right? That explosion, that anger, that verbal emotional abuse. It's like there's so much emotional energy surging through that it needs to be offloaded somewhere. So the wounded feminine abuses with verbal abuse, emotional abuse, anger, tons of heat and energy. The feminine is very powerful, right? And the masculine abuses through deceit, control, manipulation, being sinister, cunning, all of that. So they look very different in the way that the abuse carries out. And in the same way, they also operate in the opposite ends of the spectrum on the empowered level, which is why the empowered levels balance and empower one another, and the wounded also match one another and empower their dysfunction just as much.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Shall we go to the next question?
You're up.
How does purpose and mission change or enhance relationships with women? So, yeah, there's two parts here before I pass it to you that I'll be pretty laser with. But there's two parts to this, because again, it's like so much of the answer is in the question, in the sense of like, well, what is the definition of purpose and mission that this person is working with? Because just a change in definition could make the question irrelevant. Because on one level I go, what is my purpose and mission in life? Well, right now, Aaron, it's to be here with you. Then it's going to be the next thing, and then the next thing. And the moment that I think doing something in particular is more valuable than anything else I could do, you know, it's like they say so much in Buddhism. It's like, just like sweep the garden, wash, you know, water the plants, do your dishes. That's
chop wood, carry water.
Yeah. So it's like when I create the separation and go, these are the valuable things and these are the non-valuable things, then my purpose becomes a manifestation of my ego. And I experience this in past relationships where I go, you're taking me away from my purpose. And all of this neediness, all this stuff, I need to go do my purpose, not realizing that my purpose in that moment was that experience, and that I had an opportunity for some serious liberation and to release all these separate compartments of my life. So that's one, in one sense, a little more meta level. I'd address, maybe ask yourself what your definition of purpose is, but in the way you probably mean it, I would think it's like career, you know, how you're of service, and where you're spending most of your time serving others that is outside of the relationship. I would say that truly being connected to your unique, inspired, ever-changing form of service is one of the most important things for any relationship, because it is an absolute source of connection to God, true power, passion, inspiration, and that is then what you will bring to the relationship, because you're in that state already. You're teaching that with your action. And what else do we want, all of us, outside to really live in passion and inspiration and service? And so I'd say it's of the utmost importance.
Yeah, well said. Going back to the contrast of masculine, feminine being masculine works, feminine plays. Nature of the masculine is to want to know, to understand, to accomplish. Feminine wants to experience, to feel. So what happens when we're like, I'm a workaholic, I work, 10 hours a day. If I work too much, what happens? I end up having this need for a vacation. I need to just get on a beach somewhere and just go feel and experience and be in the hammock and feel the breeze and the water. And I just want to, I'm too overextended on this side, and I need the balance of the feeling and the experiencing. But then what happens when we're just lazy and feel and experience and relax? We end up feeling this urge. I need to go do something. I need to work. I need to accomplish something. I need to move towards my goals. So I think that if a traditional, heterosexual man who's going to naturally be more to the masculine side of the energy spectrum, the masculine wants to work. It feels satisfied and fulfilled when it's working and it's moving towards accomplishing something, because that's just the nature of the polarity. So a man will, I can't remember exactly how the question's phrased, but when a man is in that balance of working towards his goals and accomplishing something of his purpose in life, he will feel very fulfilled in that role, and then can bring that to the relationship in the same way. Whereas a man who doesn't have a purpose, who feels unsatisfied with his life and isn't working towards anything, will typically feel very disempowered, unmotivated, and that will be mirrored in the relationship. The two go hand in hand. So the way you are with one thing is the way you are with anything, right?
Yeah, and I love that. And for me personally, my marker of highest excitement and passion is what determines this more than anything else. And because I'm in the relationship that I'm in, that is my occupation as well, if you want to lump it into that category, because it's my excitement, it's my passion to be in the relationship. So when that thread, like when I am surrendered to that thread of passion and that thread of excitement, as long as I'm being honest, I will easily walk away from the job or the things that you might call like the career or business when I'm inspired to not do it, when I'm inspired to rest, when I'm inspired to have connection. And because that thread, you could say, or inner guidance, contains perfect balance, you don't need to know what it's going to look like. It's just about becoming so transparent that it
Yeah.
becomes obvious. So it might look on the surface one day that for 10 hours I'm in a creative flow that does not involve my partner. But it can actually be the most balancing thing if it's true, if it's real, you're really authentically connected to it, and you're not
Right.
just going, I need to do this for money or security. So again, just watch where the mind goes. Well, this is what it looks like. This is what it doesn't look like. It's more accurate to go, okay, am I being truthful with how I'm feeling? And if am I being honest on if I'm avoiding the relationship or avoiding work or attached to some sort of outcome, and lying to myself saying, no, I really do need to work because we need to pay the bills. Because if that wasn't true for you, then you might make extremely illogical decisions in the name of truth. And that's actually
Right.
what the power is. I don't need to do that. I don't need to overcompensate and push and do all that. I'm going to relax. And, the feminine could go, well, how are we going to make money? And it's like, I don't even need to know. I'm that sure that we're going to have everything we need. And you start kind of evolving this, I need to be the one that provides, to I need to be, in a sense, for myself, the one that knows I cannot be provided for.
Yeah. I think you cut out for a second.
Okay. Yeah, how am I doing?
Am I cutting out or are you cutting out?
My screen looks really good. Your screen looks a little blurry. I don't know. You guys let us know on the comments.
Okay.
How can you hear, if you guys can hear me, let me know.
Well, I have no clue. On my end, you cut out, but on your end, I cut out. So we're on both ends here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So final thoughts on that. That was sparked for me is the feminine wants to be understood and known by the masculine. The masculine wants to feel and experience the feminine. So when the masculine's in its true empowerment, it's doing everything for love and from love because it wants to feel and experience the feminine, which is love. But when the masculine is disempowered or wounded, it's all self-focused. So instead of being the provider and the protector of the other or love, it becomes the provider and protector of itself. So it's protecting itself at the exclusion of whoever, right? Which is typically the partner who might hurt me or wound me in some way. It will push away rather than draw towards.
Yep. Love that.
My turn or your turn?
Your turn, yeah.
Let's go with this one. How do we handle sexual urges, from @Count B? Do you want to hit that one first or me?
Yeah, I just got this one quote from the Course, or kind of from the paraphrase, that I think is really powerful, and when it talks about all urges are like acting on an urge is essentially deflecting a miracle. It's like it's the moment that I go, I do need this, that I affirm the identity. And the only reason I'm having the urge is because I'm being invited to re-identify. It doesn't mean I need to give anything up. It just means, oh wait, no, I don't actually need this. And in that awareness, do I even want it? Do I even want the snack? Do I even want to actually have sex from that level of me? It's the constant pulling, in a sense, or gravity from spirit, constantly sending you the ability to have a miracle, to have a shift in your perception. Just going, oh, look at all these urges for you to think you can get something that you don't already have. And so when we use it that way, I find a lot of times we don't need the urge, and that could just simply look like going, what do I think I will get from this, from acting on this? What do I think it will give me? And doing some inquiry around what you think you will gain. And like you say all the time, Aaron, realizing there's no value in pursuing gaining that, because that's what's keeping it away.
Yeah, very well said. Sexual energy it's really kind of the most powerful or potent energy we experience. It's that primal energy of the animal nature. And so it has a lot of power for manifestation and creation if it's used the right way. And I think so many of us make or have made the mistake of misusing our sexual energy, because it's just pure potential energy. It's innocent in and of itself. So it can be used for good or evil in that sense. And so really the way to think about it is, how do I want to use this energy? Because this urge is going to keep being there, because I have an animal nature, I have a sexual nature.
Yeah.
Until it's really balanced and transcended, it's going to keep coming up in the form of this urge. So how do I balance it in a healthy way? And so then the question is, well, what do I want? What do I want from sexual energy? Do I want that deep, intimate connection with another for spiritual growth and all of that? Then let me use this energy in that direction. So a simple example of this is that easily by far, Brandon, the number one question I get from men, and it's always in my inbox, it shows up on YouTube comments all over the place, sometimes on Instagram comments. Aaron, talk about semen retention. Talk about semen retention. Is semen retention good? And I never address it, because I see it coming from, is this the one right way to handle sexual energy or not?
Right.
And it's like, it doesn't work like that, right? It's about what you want. And so you can absolutely circulate sexual energy in the body rather than releasing it through breath work and pulling it up the energy network, up to the mind, and use it up here. You can use sexual energy in those ways, and that's just as valid. But typically the way we misuse sexual energy is like, if we're single, we're looking for intimate partnership with a conscious person, and every time we feel horny, we go watch porn. We self-pleasure to porn. And it's like, well, that's using the most powerful attracting energy that we have available for that direction. So you're going to attract that kind of connection, right? The dominating, closed off, you're just an object to me. I don't want connection with you. I want to use you for pleasure. You're going to attract those kinds of experiences using sexual energy that way. So it's like self-pleasuring is totally a valid practice, as much as semen retention is. But how am I going to use it? So if I am going to self-pleasure using this sexual energy, let me imagine what kind of connection I want to create. Let me pleasure myself to that visualization of, wow, the intimacy, the connection, the spark, the chemistry. Man, that's what I want. And then boom, all of a sudden you're going to be manifesting in that direction instead. So I would just say, just be very careful in the way you use sexual energy, because it's just the nature that it's pure power. And it will create whatever you use it for. So definitely you want to use it in a conscious way, right?
Yeah, that's so important, Aaron. And I think you kind of alluded to it, but it's like what you do sexually, it's not like that is going to be holding more weight than other things you do in life. Yes, you're dealing with a really powerful energy, but these questions will come from a place of going, well, I really need to know this, because this is going to determine something about my life that's either going to make or break my life. I have to get it right. And like that whole line of questioning, it's going to pervade all areas of your life. That's how I'm going to do my business. That's how I'm going to do my relationship. I really want to make sure I'm doing it the right way so I can progress. And all of that comes from, most often, this underlying feeling of lack right now. Like once I figure this out, then I'll be more spiritual, more grounded, more whatever. So it's really about turning inward to where that lack is right now. Again, if this is coming from a place that feels very disempowering, and separation, going, whatever I think that's going to give me, for some reason, I'm not allowing myself to access now. And if that's the case, it's always going to be because we believe somehow not accessing it is serving us. It's serving me to hold on to guilt so I don't repeat mistakes. It's serving me to, not sit and feel and inquire into my mind, because I might end up depressed and stuck and alone. I mean, whatever story there's as many stories as there are people. So you just have to find, like you said, Aaron, what do I believe I'm getting out of it? And if I didn't, this is a really powerful question. If I didn't choose to self-pleasure, what do I feel I would lose? And because you're going to be in the game of gain and loss. And in the absence of gain or loss, you make decisions totally different.
Yeah.
And in a sense, you don't even make them. They're made, it's like, that's just what happens. So That's where you really want to get. Do I think I could gain something? Do I think I can lose something from this? If I do, it's going to feel heavy. It's going to feel like a weight. I'm going to be conflicted. Let me inquire on what's around there. And typically for men, at least in my experience, the moments that I felt, man, I really need to go masturbate, like I need to, is because I want to break from my mind. Yeah. I want to break from my freaking thinking. And what's usually under that is I'm thinking so hard because I'm wanting to figure out how to not feel what I'm feeling. So typically from just the surrendering to the feeling of, oh, lack. If I don't masturbate, I'm going to feel stressed. Okay, maybe I'm actually being called to just feel that without a story, without a destination, without a fixing. And I start actually connecting to my disconnection, therefore starting to feel connection and intimacy. And from there, if I choose to masturbate, great. I'm in a totally different context. It's empowering. Therefore, it'll be empowering. So it's more about, again, where you're coming from, not the act itself.
Yeah, no, 100%. Two more things I want to say on this topic, just because I think we're on a good vein here. Number one is...
A good vein, no pun intended.
We're in a good vein.
I was thinking about the main vein, but you know what I'm talking about.
There's a lot of good puns going on in the comments that I'm appreciating.
Oh, nice.
Somebody said, thank you for touching on this subject, no pun intended. So first thing I want to say is that there's something called like post-orgasm clarity. We all know what this is, right? After that release, that enormous energetic release of that feminine energy that comes out through the orgasm, all of a sudden we'll feel this intense motivation to go work, or, you know, we feel inspired to go do something, create something. And it's like, look at how those energies work. It's such a perfect way to see that how these energies play out. When you allow yourself to have that feminine moment of pure experience, just pure feeling, that's all an orgasm is, right? Total annihilation of the ego. No self-experiencing an orgasm, just orgasm. I am the orgasm, right? That's the feminine surrender to the moment. It annihilates the separate self. That's the beauty of it spiritually. The masculine, to know, to understand, to have the wisdom to know, also in its highest form annihilates ego, because you become pure knowing. So when pure knowing and pure feeling meets, that's what good sex is. Right? Good sex is when there's no person having sex, you become the act of love making itself. And so what I find interesting, the second thing I want to say is the wounded masculine form of sex is the dominating, controlling, possessing, right? So in a very real way, in that kind of, and this is, you know, I don't know, 80% of the way our culture has sex now, which to me is just incredibly boring and monotonous and repetitive. But it's like the first sex you ever have with someone in that role is the best sex you have. And then from there, it gets more boring and more boring because I've already conquered you. I've already possessed you. Next, who's next? That's the way it works. In an empowered, conscious, loving, intimate relationship, the first sex you have is actually the worst sex you ever have, in a sense. Now, there's the magic of the moment and connecting for the first time, and that's great. But the actual dynamic of the love making, it's the worst at the beginning, and it gets better and better over time. Because in that connection, the knowing and the feeling of one another, you begin to know one another's bodies. You begin to play each other's bodies like an instrument. And so you're like learning to play music together. You know, she is a saxophone, I am the piano, and together we're learning how to play jazz. So it's like the connection deepens, the sex gets better and better. So to know that those are two completely opposite types of sex you can engage in, the question is, what do I want? Which one do I prefer? Do I want to be on this endless quest to dominate and conquer and possess as many humans as possible until my last gasp of air, and then I reincarnate and do it all over again? Or do I want to charge my polarity with one soul and learn how to be a musician in the bedroom, right? Learn how to use sexual energy to play music and experience the divine. You can't experience that kind of connection through domination, because once you've dominated, you've done it. Check, who's next? But in the same end, to truly have connection with someone, you can't dominate them. You have to become one with them. You have to merge with them. So again, which one do you want? And then that should be the way you start using your sexual energy.
Yes. And this is so great because I remember coming to this realization. My experience with Ashley is like we will climax an orgasm at the same time almost every time that we make love.
Isn't that crazy?
If we don't, it's because we're choosing not to, because if I want to actually like ejaculate, then I will have a climax with her while she's climaxing, but I won't ejaculate because maybe I want her to have multiple climaxes, right? Or I can go, well, let's just do it at the same time. I never think about it. It's just what happens in the moment. It's not like we sit and plan. It's like, how many would you like tonight? And okay, I'll 3 tonight. Ooh, okay.
Tonight's 3 nights, yeah.
Yeah. So I had this realization when that became my norm. I had this realization. I was like, no one needs to learn how to have sex. There's no such thing as someone that's not good at sex. There is only the thoughts, the beliefs that we hold on to that create imbalance in our energy. That's it. Mm-hmm. And that just manifests in different forms. And so here's the interesting part. Nature, God, goddess, we're actually designed to have perfect, amazing sex in that kind of way. That's purely self-organized and synchronistic. And like you said, watching love make itself, being so in the moment that you're just timeless. That's the most natural way. People think that's the exception. That's actually that's what's there when all of the unnatural beliefs about who I am and who you are not there. When those are gone, that arises. And it's so funny because same thing happens with health. The same thing happens with communication skills. It's like we've created all these categories to go, let me see how I am reflecting myself in this category, in this category, in this category. And I think a lot of people get stuck in going, I just really need to learn the techniques of sex and tantra. I just need to learn the processes and techniques. Meanwhile, the energy is the same. And, it's like change one, you change all.
It's like playing music by ear or by sheet music, like learning how to read music or play by ear. I was always, my whole family's super musical, crazy good ears, like perfect pitch. And so I just had that ability when I started studying music and playing music, and reading music off a sheet staff or whatever was just so boring. It was like so uncreative, uninspiring to me. And I feel the same way about lovemaking. It's like the question is not, can I be good at sex as if it's a technique? It's like, no, can I connect? If I can connect with her, guaranteed we will be having good sex, because it won't be me, the person, applying a technique that I learned on a YouTube video for sex. It's like, it will be God making love to God. It will be the divine experiencing itself. And it's really like, I'm sure you know how this is, like every time I have sex, it's like this total out of body experience. I have no clue what I'm going to do. I'm watching the hands move, the body move. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And we both come out of the experience like, can you believe what just happened? I mean, it was just pure divine energy moving through us, puppeteering us. And it's like the best sex you ever have is when you're not having sex, like when you're out of the way. But it takes the two balanced energies, right? The feeling and the knowing have to meet.
Yep. That's so good.
By the way, everyone, I see a million comments. Is this going to be saved? Save the live, save the live.
It's all going to
be saved. It'll be on YouTube. We'll make sure you have access to it. Anything else from you, Brandon?
On that subject, I have one more question. If maybe we could be a little laser with this question. I think it's valuable. It just says, when is, can you be too vulnerable with someone? Is there a way to be too much? So what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, this is a good question. Yeah. I would just simply say that being vulnerable doesn't mean telling your partner every thought that runs through your mind. It doesn't mean sharing every thought that comes through every feeling you have. It means you have nothing to hide. That's true vulnerability, but it also takes wisdom to know what is helpful to share and what's not. Because every stupid thought that buzzes through my mind might not be helpful or useful or mean anything. But if I'm identified with the mind, I feel this need. I have to share every thought and feeling that I have. And a lot of times, just give yourself time. Like, sit with it, feel it, contemplate it, and let that inner wisdom show you the lesson in that thought or feeling. And then you might not have any need to share it once you've worked it out. So true vulnerability to me is just, I have nothing to hide. I'm an open book. If anything you want to know, I'm happy to share. I always tell the truth. I always show up.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, especially with feminine, it could be, well, I don't want to be too emotional. I don't want to be too vulnerable. Or if there's the thought, well, if I share my darkness with them, will it be too much for them? In that case, it's probably great to share it because it might be painful, it might be hard, but there's this fear that somehow my experience, if they don't respond to it in the way that I want them to, is invalid. So, that can be a learning experience to go, oh, I was thinking I need them to tell me it's not too much in order for me to validate my experience. But again, you can get there by just validating your experience. There's no
Right.
such thing as too vulnerable. There's
Right.
not like a spectrum. There's I'm authentically sharing something or I'm not. If I'm actually sharing something vulnerable to get something, to get love, to say, well, I feel like I need to share this so I could see how you handle me, and there's other motives, then you're actually not being vulnerable. And it could look like it. You could be crying, you could be talking about all of this darkness, but if there's an agenda, it's not vulnerability, it's manipulation. So again, it's I'm sharing for the sake of sharing. Why? Because that's just what I feel I want to do for me, not for you, but for me. And again, that's the divine selfishness because there you give someone an opportunity to really see you. And
Yeah.
that's what the connection is.
Yeah. 100%. Whatever you give to yourself, you can give away to others. What you deny to yourself, you will deny to others as well. So if you can be vulnerable with yourself, it just means I have the capacity to let myself feel uncomfortable feelings, to let thoughts, disturbing thoughts be there. And if I can give myself that space, I can give it to my partner. If I can't do that, then I will need to offload everything I think and feel onto my partner because I don't have the capacity to just sit with it and feel it and surrender to it. So be vulnerable with yourself and you'll be truly vulnerable with your partner in that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
So good, man.
Yeah. That's all I got.
Should we wrap it up there?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, Brandon, I just want to say, brother, this has been so much fun and such a pleasure to spend these hours with you talking about this, co-creating this, and with all of you joining us, the questions you submitted, the feedback and the lives. This has been absolutely the most fun series I've ever done on Instagram. So I'm sure it'll be back in some shape or form in the future, but we'll keep all this on Instagram. I'll put it on YouTube so you guys can access it. And just want to echo again my gratitude to you, brother.
Yeah, likewise, Aaron. I'm bowing to you. Thank you. Amazing stuff. I love our synergy. Yeah, thank you. I love all of you guys showing up and your participation and support. It's been highlight of these last couple of weeks. So I'm very
Absolutely.
grateful as well.
Yeah. Thanks again, guys, for showing up. And have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. Much love.
All right, see you guys.
Take care.